are such tricky conversations because it's like you don't want to, girl, how I'm looking, I'm about to go for a run. You don't want to appear like blasphemous, and that's not what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to say. But you know, for me, growing up Black, being saved, being a Christian, like I learned from other Christians, and I seen for a lot of women in my family, a lot of people who have took this very kind of like rely on God for every little thing approach, they end up being very miserable. You know, their lives are very legalistic, you know, and if God is a spirit, I've always felt this. These were always my thoughts and my personal convictions, you know. If God is a spirit, then God is always moving. And the people that I've seen take this very like religious, and you know, people, and here's the thing too, you know, these conversations are so tricky, so I want to be mindful of the verbiage that I use. But like, you have some people who are like, oh, y'all religious, and then they want to be talking about God, but then they're just like cursing, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily feel that, because I feel like me personally, like, you know, so it's like everyone is different. And when I'm saying cursing, like, I mean, not to say you can't curse, you do what you want to do in your own time. Like, it's not really a matter of like that, but it's more so like in the church, or if you're giving a message to God, or if you're like, you know, or about God, and you're just like ramming off like with all these profanity, like I feel like that's just like weird, because it's like, how can you, because you know, I just feel like God is so pure and holy, like you wouldn't really want to, like, you know, you kind of want to turn that side off, like, I don't know. And I don't even want to say turn that side off, but I'm just saying, like, when you go about it in that way where it's like, oh, you can just do whatever you want, I don't understand. I don't see, I'm like, I feel like people are either on one extreme or another. I think another thing too, with social media being this space where it's like everyone's sharing their faith walk, everyone's talking about God, it's become very linear, and just like everything else, it's become very trendy. And I was reading in this book by I can't think of his first name, but last name is Alpert, and it's the Good Enough Life. I have it with me. I'm not even gonna reach over and get it, because you guys know I showed you in a short video. I'm reading that right now, and you know, let me know if you guys want a book review. But he just talks about how as the world moves more towards economic gain, people's values is going to change. And with the church, as the world moves towards more economic, like that's the motivating force, right? It's economics. Christianity is going to change. And it's like, that's kind of what I feel like we're seeing today. Like, I feel like we're kind of in this point now where it's like Christianity is 100% changing, because people are more so like, you know, like they're just, I feel like people are more so at this point now where it's like when it comes to like faith, it's all about profit, and it's all about marketing your faith. And I literally wrote a column about this, so you guys check out my column. I'm gonna leave my little link, you know, in the bio. But I literally talked about how, you know, what happens when we start to market people's faith, and how for so many people, like, now it's either like anything goes, you know, or you have those people who are kind of like being risen from the dead, and they're like very legalistic and they're very religious, and it just kind of robs people of the quality of life and the life that God promises us, which is more, you know, which is blessings and abundant, which is blessings and abundantly. So it's a very tricky thing, honestly. I feel like we're just in a really, really, really tough space in regards to faith. You know, I thank God that I am not young to the extent of like I rely on like what other people say about my faith and about, you know what I mean? Like, I thank God I'm not, you know, immature in my faith and in my faith walk and just in my life. Like, I thank God that I have my own thoughts and I have my own relationship with God post social media, right? Because I feel like for a lot of young people, you know, a lot of young people are giving their lives to Christ. They're doing it online. They're finding these online communities, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just gonna say this because I know this to be true from my own personal experience, and I don't want anyone to feel some type of way. Like, I want to make sure I don't say this with insensitivity, but I just know for me, I've watched and I've learned from the people who really took that approach where it's like they lean on Christianity because they're really lazy, and it's like they just end up really miserable, and they end up living life, and life just kind of like passes them by, and you know, they end up being very bitter and very resentful And so it's just like, you don't really want to be that person. You don't want to be, I don't even know. Is this like a how-to? Is this an advice video? Like, I don't know. But I just feel like I've seen that in people's lives, and that's not the path you want to take. That's all I'm going to say. Like, you need to just pray about that, because I just noticed, like, there's so many people who go to God because deep down, like, they're just lazy. Like, they're just lazy. And it's like, for them, they like relying on God. They like the idea of God and Christianity. And, you know, they like being in Christ because they're lazy. Like, they're literally just lazy. And it's like they use that to justify everything. I believe that God is real. And I believe that I believe it's through your works. Like, when I talk about my testimony, God giving me a new apartment, me getting a new car, everything, that was all based on my faith, believing. Like, when it wasn't possible, I prayed about it. I believed that God was going to do it. And then I was working, girl. I was looking for apartments, and I had to have the confidence and the self-esteem when I would go to see places, and I'm like, nah, God, this ain't it. Like, I know you got something better for me. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't settle here because I was doing some personal work, and I was believing in something better than this. And I believed that God had something better for me, and I wasn't going to settle here in this apartment because I was like, I just feel like I'm much more worthy and deserving than this. But I was also putting in the work. I was saving money. I was working. You know what I mean? And I just think that for so many Christians, I think this is like the older Christians, but I'm seeing a lot of young people jump on this wave too. And it's like, you can't live your life like that. And you also can't be in a space too where it's like you're super high strung and you just make all these crazy decisions and you just expect God to just like come in and fix everything. Like, I don't know. I can't tell you how to have your own relationship with God. This is definitely not a how-to video. But what I can tell you is, if you put your life on the back burner for any means, you can't be mad when you just kind of like drift and like you just go with whatever. And you can't be mad at anybody else, and you can't sit around judging other people for what they're doing and what they're not doing. And you can't, you know, you're gonna be very miserable, and that's not what God has for you. So you need to work on hearing and seeing and believing God. I think as you mature in your faith, you just kind of realize, like, you have to put the scriptures to use. If God says he's with you, then you need to like believe that God is with you, and you need to live your life in that way. And, you know, if God says I'm ordering your steps, then you need to believe that, and believe that those convictions and the things that you feel within yourself is a real thing. If God says I am love, he who does not love is not from me, is not of me. I did not give you the spirit of fear, but the spirit of peace and a sound mind. Like, you have to start living, working, toiling, applying the scriptures, okay? You can't just like, you know, if God says he's gonna, you know, make you a wife, he's gonna make you the mother of children, your children are gonna honor you, your husband's gonna cover you, he's gonna respect you. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's how you know. That's how you know. It's not this whole like, oh, this person prays, oh, this person goes to church, this has to be the one. No. Is he doing those things? Is he doing those things? Does it feel right? Do you have that? Or are you always anxious? Are you always, okay, that's God telling you that this is not the person. This is not the one. You see, it's like we have to have balance here. And I just noticed for a lot of people, like, you know, even older people, like, a lot of people take this very passive route, and it's like they just, oh, God's gonna do it, God's gonna do it. You know, the moment for me, and I'm gonna end with this, my favorite movie ever, which is The Pursuit of Happiness. I absolutely love that movie. Great movie. But in the film, you know, he's walking Jaden to school. His name is Christopher in the movie, but he's walking Jaden to school, and Jaden's telling him a story, and he's like, the story goes, there was a man who was out praying for God to send him. There was a man who was like in the middle of the ocean, right? He was praying for God to help him get out of the ocean because he was drowning. And the guy was drowning, and boats came. People came by, and they were trying to help the man get up out the water. And he was like, no, God's going to save me. And then the man drowned, and he died. And when he got to heaven, he was like, God, why didn't you save me? And God was like, I sent you 2 big boats, you dummy. And that story just really touched my heart, because I feel like that's the reality, you know. And so if you're constantly being very legalistic, I know even for myself now, there were certain things I just wasn't willing to do, because I just felt like I didn't want to be a part of the aftermath. But I even think about times I prayed for certain things, but because it came in a way that didn't look like religion, or it didn't look like, you know what I mean, how I felt like it was supposed to look, and how I felt like I was supposed to be blessed, I didn't step into my blessings. And now I'm over here trying to figure out when is the next thing coming, because I'm stressed because I didn't get on the boat because I didn't like the person who was driving the boat. So now it's like I'm drowning in this area when I really could have just got on the boat, because it didn't matter. I prayed for this. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, it's like believing in your prayers and believing that God hears you, but you have to have faith in works, because without your works, faith is dead. And God tells us that. I don't know why faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. So you're doing all these things, you're going to church, you're praying, you're doing all these things, you're reading your Bible, but if you are just doing that, how can you expect to get anything? How can you, like, you see what I'm saying? Wisdom, you know. And I think that's a thing that's really unfortunate about Christian culture, is that it really despises personal philosophy, personal experiences, wisdom, intelligence, you know. It really, but it's like, you know, that's doctrine, right? That's religion, that's man. God literally says, don't be a fool. He tells you, girl, if they're not respecting you, dust your feet. Let your peace be returned unto you. He says, don't cast your pearls to swine. They will trample them under your feet. You have to understand, Jesus spoke in parables. You have to, application.